Good afternoon and welcome to this session. Let's start with asking a few questions. Everyone here in the room, I assume everyone performs testing with their codes, but raise your hand if you're not. You're not? Oh, okay, well, bear with me because I've been talking about testing your code for over 20 years, so yeah, you will get a lot of lecture from me. Second of all, is there anyone in the room who doesn't use AI agents for their coding purposes? Okay, there's still a few. Okay, good. Well, AI and the role of developer. It's a bit of a sad story because if I look at the media, we're not doing a great job. I mean, the role of a developer is basically over. AI will take over our jobs and we're done for. So as a developer, I assume we're doomed. Maybe we all can go to the gym and work out on the machines there and produce energy for the AI bots to generate the code. Maybe that would be a good idea. Or maybe we just finish here and say, okay, let's have some jokes and do impromptu sessions here. What do you think? Yeah? We should stop now? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, AI has issues, a lot of them. And if I recall correctly, one of the major issues that AI has is it generates a lot of code. But we're not sure if it's really good code. So it generates a lot, and how can we verify that it is really good code? Another thing is that it generates too much of solutions that you need to adjust. So you're interacting constantly with the AI, and basically it slows down the development altogether. That is the bottom line. So with that information in hand, one hand, AI is taking over our job, and then on the other hand, we have AI doing a poor job, taking over our job. What should we do? Can we still see the forest through the trees? So I go back to my basics. And when I say I go back to my basics, I mean go back to my basics 20 years ago. Back then, the primary challenge was prevent bad code from surfacing. And I always love this cartoon. The quality of code is measured in how many, what the F. But it's true. Because once you write code and you put it in production, you have to maintain it. You have to nurture it until the project or the product is retired. So there is a whole lifespan that you need to maintain that code. And if you write code right now and you don't know what you have written a week ago, you're in a problem space. And I don't like that. And I hope everyone here can agree that is not a very nice spot to be in. So as I said, I've been promoting testing for PHP applications for over 20 years. And back in the day, it was a hard sell. Because nobody had time, nobody had the budget, because testing takes enough of the budget, and we needed to generate a lot of content and solutions very fast. And I remember that if people were saying, yeah, we test our application and ask how, they said, well, we press F5 or Control R. And we refresh the page and we see that it's there and it's working. So over the 2 decades, I've been working with development teams trying to introduce unit testing, try to introduce behavioral testing, and the quality got better. developers got more confident in the code that they provided, and the solutions that were generated matched the requirements of the request of the client. And that gave another level of joy and happiness and flow in the workspace. So basically, we're setting up the second ideal of joy, flow, and quality. Let's focus a little bit more on that testing capability, because you write your code, you write your tests, but now your code is basically designing your test, and I want to reverse it, and that's why I'm talking about test-driven development. And for those who are not familiar with that concept, let me briefly explain it. So you write your test because you have an idea, and that test will fail because you haven't written any code. But your test designs the way that your code should behave. The first step that you will do is write your code matching the design of your test. And even if you're not connecting with a database or not fetching any data, you just return a static array of values, and you test that the values are correct, what you expect, and your test will pass. Once you know that the logic you have created meets the criteria of your test, you start refactoring your code to make it more properly integrated with the backend systems and all the other things, and your test will still pass if you have done a correct job. If it doesn't, it will tell you where you made the mistake, and you will be able to correct it. So that is the basic concept of test-driven development. The nice thing of test-driven development is it guides your outcome. It guides your design. And by creating your test first, you have more proof and that everything that you have built is meeting the requirements of what you need to build. And that gives a lot of confidentiality and comfort for the developers, because they can see now, hey, it works, and I don't have to worry about it. Then let's have a look at how we onboard our junior developers. By the way, this is my son. We want to create a clear context in which they need to operate. We give them an assignment. We explain what the assignment is all about, what we expect the outcome will be, and then we guide them in building the solution. We also want to make sure that we create a safe space so that they feel comfortable in asking questions, even if those questions might be very basic, but we need to give them that space. We need to provide them an environment where they don't fear asking questions. All of a sudden, we also want to make sure that once they have created something, we want them to explain what they have done. We want to hear from them themselves how they built it, what challenges they had, and what lessons they learned. And this is not just for kids, but also for junior developers in your team. You want to make sure that they understand what they're doing. You want to make sure that you can mentor them in their growth inside the organization. So you want to nurture them in such a way that they feel comfortable working within the team. And they grow. They grow not because we say, oh, there's the Stack Overflow, go figure it out. No, they grow because we guide them. We put them on the right track. We help them provide more context and guidelines so they feel more confident in finding their way within the organization, within the team, within the project. And last but not least, we want to provide those junior developers the right tools so they can actually be productive from day one. And when I talk about tools, I'm talking about all the tools that we have at our disposal for bringing quality as a result. And I'm talking about Composer, I'm talking about PHP Unit, I'm talking about Behead. Maybe less familiar, Infection, who has heard of it? Okay, 1, 2. Infection is mutation testing. For those who are not familiar with that, I also have a slide deck on this, which covers another session altogether. We have Code Sniffer, so we can enforce coding standards and make sure that everything is according to our own requirements. Things for database migrations, Vimeo Psalm and PHP Stan. They're compatible kind of tools. They're static analysis tools that look at the quality of your code and give you feedback if you make mistakes or if you have bad code snippets in your whole code base. ExaCAD goes a little bit further. It analyzes the code base, looks for whatever kind of weird implementations you have, and will address those and ask questions about how to correct it. And then, of course, Trivi is like an open source project where you have a capability of doing security analysis of your code, of your configuration settings, and all those kind of things. So that is basically the toolbox that we hand to all the developers, and we require them to use them. Especially PHP Unit and Behead very extensively. But we're not talking about the tools, we're not talking about the tests, we're talking about the battle between humans and robots, AI agents. So, everyone is talking about vibe coding. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think, 24, 2 years, I was looking at how developers are using AI in their development process. And I was thinking, well, they're doing prompt-driven development. They ask the agent to do something. The agent returns with a response. Then they ask the agent to make modifications. The AI agent's response. They ask again, and there is again a response. And I think you know where this is going to. It's a continuous cycle. So I stepped back and I did some observations. So without any guidelines, AI is great at producing a lot of code. Most of it is garbage, but it will do this very fast and very efficiently. Can we agree on that? Second of all, even though AI tends to hallucinate, it's not great at chaos engineering. It doesn't think about all the bad things that can happen on a code base. So, yeah, well, we need to have some guidance there. Some very trivial things like, hey, I will have this contact form. Can you process this contact form? Very simple for humans, but apparently for AI agents, it's very complicated. It takes a lot of attempts and a lot of tries and a lot of prompting and a lot of reprompting just to get that solution out of the door. And yeah, every time you ask something to the AI agent, it will consume a lot of energy as well. When your agent finally has a result, you look at it and you go like, it's not very complicated, it's very basic. So it really meets your minimum requirements. Are we satisfied with that? And then, yeah, I already said this about the amount of iterations that you need to have. And I look back at what I learned back in the day about agile development. And basically this is all about, yeah, the agile mindset. We don't provide a storyline like, okay, you start here and this is the end result in one go. Waterfall is out the door 30 years ago, but yeah, this is how AI now behaves, really according to the Agile Manifesto. So I don't think that humans and AI should be on opposite sides. There should be a tight collaboration between it. And I think that we can achieve that if we just look at how we onboard our junior developers. And who's familiar with the health documents in a project? Okay, one? Yeah? Okay, the health documents are basic documents that explain more about what this project is all about in a README file, how you can contribute, what rules do we set for people that want to participate in this project, what to do if you have questions, where can you reach out, who you need to contact, and also regarding security issues. And this is very common in open source projects. Why don't we do this in our private projects, in customer projects? We should do the same thing. So we provide a README file and not just the title of the project and be done for. No, we try to explain all the necessary information for people starting on the project, how to get started. If they want to contribute, we provide a contribution documentation. And then, with AI in mind, we take it a little step further. Every agent tool out there has its own configuration, guidelines document that you need to provide. Basically, it's always in a directory dot name of your engine and then guidelines or the name of the engine .md. But we now see that this is a requirement for all the agents. And now the collective has created agents.md, which is a help document specifically for agents. Doesn't matter what kind of AI you're using. And that provides stricter guidelines, stricter rules that are complementary to the README file and your contributing file. And those are the rules in which an AI agent could operate. And with that information, you now have the capability to say, AI agent, work with me, instead of being on opposite sides. So let's onboard the AI agent. It becomes part of our team. So every developer now has its own personal assistant, so to speak. Let's think back at the way that we worked in agile processes. So we have an objective. We say, okay, from this objective, we can do these kind of things. We start working on it in a 2-week sprint, 3-week sprint, 1-week sprint. And then we have the outcome. Producing the outcome provides us also with learnings, which we take back into our sprint planning for the next sprint. Plus, all those steps that we have made will guide us towards a better solution. So we put those together and we do it all over again. with AI, we're basically doing the same thing. So there is not a lot of difference between what we do for the past 20 years and what we do now for the past 2 years with AI. So let's make very good use of it. We do have one warning. AI is always trying to produce a result, even if it's not capable of producing a result. Because that's how AI is now set up in that way. So you need to constrain it, you need to guide it, and you need to verify it. But besides of that, AI can be fantastic. So let's have a look at how I thought about how we are interacting with AI. So we have a ticket system, Jira, GitLab, GitHub, whatever. And we have tickets. Those are ideas that we want to experiment on. Okay? Well, first, the developer takes a ticket. Based on that ticket, it will start creating the unit test, the behavior test. Once it's done, let's prompt AI saying, these are my artifacts. This is the result that we want. Go do it. In the meantime, when AI is working, it will also have the capability of performing the mutation testing to make sure that whatever it's creating, it's not failing in the mutations state. And also that we have all our security bases covered. It's done. We finally make sure that we're meeting our coding standards. And in the end, the solution is provided, committed to the repository. We can do a pull request review, or if we have the capability, do the review while it's generating the code, so we know exactly what's being created. And we do this ticket by ticket, task by task. Not say, agent, here, build me a website. No, build me a service page, a product page. Build me a contact form. Build me a contact processing component. We give them small tasks, just like we do with our developers. We're not saying to our developers, build everything and do it in one sprint. No, we give them simple tasks. And by collaborating on this, in this way, we get maximum amount of output. And I can tell you all this and say, you have to do this way. And then you go home and you say, well, Michelangelo is full of fertilizer. I don't care. Well, I don't base this just on my own experiences. Ever heard of DORA research? DORA is an organization that is interviewing for the past 10 years developers in many industries, in many organizations worldwide about the practices that they have in order to succeed in the digital market. And they have performed a study in 2025 regarding AI usage. And the key component that they have discovered is, A, you need to onboard AI agents, B, you need to guide them with guidelines, and C, you need to provide tests so they can perform the way that you want it to perform. Well, that's DORA, that's research, that's academic. Okay, maybe people know Gene Kim. Phoenix Project, Unicorn Project, DevOps Handbook. Accelerate. Oh, okay, those are books you definitely have to have read at one point. Gene Kim is the co-author of those books, and now has a book called Vibe Coding, in which he explains exactly the same thing as the Dora research provides. Exactly the same thing I'm providing you right now. If that's not enough, Dave Farley, Continuous Delivery, the book, Modern Engineering, Software Engineering? No? Okay. He has a YouTube channel, Modern Software Engineering channel. Go and visit. He talks about exactly the same thing. I mean, he presents it right there on screen. So, if everyone in the industry that we respect and that we trust that guide us in the right direction tell me this is how you should do it, then we definitely have to do it this way. And if you really want to learn more about how this interacts, the latest podcast was in the engineering room, which is also a channel of Dave Farley, in which he interviews Gene Kim, where they talk about vibe coding and they talk about modern software engineering and how these two worlds can combine. So please have a listen to it. It's 1 hour, 15 minutes. It will take some of your time, but on your commute back home, it's definitely worth the while to listen to it. Okay, let's assume that you buy all this that I'm selling. How do you get started? Well, let's start off with a very simple exercise. It's what we call katas. And if you're mentoring or coaching junior developers in your team, katas is basically a way to get that Fingerspitzengefühl in their processes. So FizzBuzz is a very simple exercise that you can do probably within 30 minutes with every team member. And it's really fun to do. But also now do it with your AI agent. So what's the rule? Well, you start off by providing a number to a function, method, class, whatever, and it returns that number as a string. If you have a multiple of 3, it should return you the string fizz. If you have a multitude of 5, it will return buzz. And if it's a multitude of 3 and 5, it should return you fizzbuzz. So, very straightforward rules, very easy to understand, not complex. Everyone can do this. It doesn't matter if you're doing it in PHP, in Python, C#, Haskell, whatever. You can try all the languages at once. So, let's look at the behavior. If you're not familiar with BHAT, BHAT is what we call behavior testing, and it writes it in natural language. So you start off with a feature, and then you have scenarios. And everyone, even if you're not technical, can read this. And with this information, you have a clear boundary of what you will expect from the result to behave. Is this complicated? I don't think so, right? Unit test cases. We have the functions, and yeah, I tend to be very explicit with my test function names. Sorry about that, but the concept is basically the same thing. We provide it with a value, and it should return what we expect it to return. Now we need to hand it over to our AI agent. So, I tell it, I created this unit test and the behavior test in those directories. I want you to create the functionality based on those tests, and you cannot modify those tests. very important to indicate, because otherwise AI says, well, I cannot solve this, the test will not pass, I change the test. Not allowed. So we provided the README with the guidance and the contributing end agents. We explicitly tell it to do, and we send it off to get started. It comes up with a very explicit plan, and we say, okay, we accept, go ahead. It will do a lot of things, and in the end, it verifies it. And you can see already, he's happy that the tests have passed. Same as we are. And the result is what we expected to be. This is what I would write as a code based on the functionality. So with this simple example, we already get a feel how we can interact with an AI agent in a trust-driven way. But we're not dealing with simple exercises. We're dealing with complex web applications, right? We have very complex demands from customers. Hey, I want to connect with this backend service, and it needs to display the information in Hindi, but it needs to be able to translate on the fly, and we need to have a chatbot explaining to the people what actually is on the page. Those kind of things. Again, we need to drive the design. We are the engineers. We specify the blueprints AI needs to follow. We do this with our tests. We do this with our behavior tests. And we provide the agents guidelines to say, this is the parameters in which you can operate. We also want to reduce the energy consumption. We have to think about our children and their children. AI is here. Using AI will consume energy. We're investing in our resources, but we need to reduce the amount of energy that we ask from it. So, by specifying it more completely and more distinctively, we can save the planet, or not impact it as much. Let me put it that way. And let's face it, we want to bring joy to everyone on our team, including our AI agent. The second ideal of DevOps, flow and joy, needs to be in the realm of AI as well. And as you can see, the bottom line, mutation testing, I passed over the 75% threshold. It's happy that it even exceeds our requirements. That's the same thing as a junior developer says, hey, I've done a great job here, even better than what you expected. And that is what I love about approaching this. And to be honest, I love writing tests so much, I hate coding. Honestly, give me any challenge and I will do testing 5 times a week. Coding, not so much. Because I already have the design. I already have everything in place. The coding just needs to follow that design. It's not challenging anymore. It just needs to build the bricks that I have already assembled for them. And AI is great at doing this. So work in tandem with your AI agent. And then you will feel the same addiction that I have. Project after project after project, I implement this. And it only gets better and it gets better. So for last year's statistics, we have more done in each sprint than we did without AI. We reduced the failure rate by 4%. That's huge. And failure rate means, meeting customer expectations, not errors and those kind of things, because we already had those tackled before it actually went into production. But meeting customer expectations is also a failure for us. We were able to deliver our solutions almost within the estimated time frame. And most of the time we went over is because of changing requirements. And the same thing goes with the budget. We're still at 5% over budget, but that's also related to the mindset changing with customers. But for us, it's still beautiful that we have the capability of being better, faster, higher quality, and I want you all to experience the same thing. Given the time, I think it's time for me to wrap up. AI adds value to the team. It performs the heavy lifting for you, writing the code. And if you have it onboarded just like you would do a junior developer, you will succeed in adopting AI within your daily work. You also need to temper its happiness, because it will try to produce all the results that you request of it. So make sure that you also show it the dark side, because it's not capable of thinking in terms of chaos, because it's naive or happy, or how you want to tell it. If you guide it correctly, it will become a very happy AI agent. It will be happy to say, hey, I exceeded your expectations. But we need to temper it. And then the final question, is AI taking your jobs? It won't. Because even though AI is great at writing code, the engineering stuff is still something humans will do and not AI. So I also want to thank all of the sponsors here and the great team that has asked me to come here. If you have questions, go to your favorite chatbot or ask me after the session. I'm human. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Michelangelo, for your insights. It's good to hear that you are the second one today was saying, yes, we still have jobs in the future. So that's a good one.
Always positive, always positive.
Yeah. But we have some little time left. Are there some people with a question for?
Good one.
No one?
Okay.
Okay, yeah, you will be around a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For being here again, and see you again in 9 years.
Hopefully sooner. All right, bye-bye.
Ja, ist natürlich, muss man die Zeit anders strukturieren irgendwie. Also wenn der Arbeitsteil wegfällt, finde ich auch schwer, aber ich meine, so ein Jahr über auch nicht mehr. Ich glaube, das heißt, ja, das ist aber nicht so weit. Es gibt genug zu tun. Ja, klar. Nö, aber ich finde das ja irgendwie auch, das ist ja auch so eine soziale Komponente. Arbeit, das ist Leute oder so, ist ja mittlerweile auch irgendwie, das ist ja schon was, was dann ja so wegfällt. Du siehst die Leute nicht mehr, weil die immer arbeiten.
Ja, man hat sich auch so auf der Arbeit getroffen.
Ja.
Beziehungsweise in letzter Zeit so, ich war immer Mittwochs, waren alle im Büro.
Ja, genau. Achso. Ja. Ja, schön.
Mein Nebenjob immer noch.
Ach so, ja, klar. Ja, genau. Das stimmt für alle möglichen Leute. Aber das war nicht so.
Genau. Eine Firma, bei der ich da regelmäßig zu tun habe. Ja. Dienstags machen wir immer morgens 10 Uhr.
Agentur?
Nee, keine Agentur. Okay.
Nee, weiß ich nicht. Das ist doch gar nicht egal. Was machen die denn? Ah, okay. Ah ja, ist klar. Apotheken ist doch dankbar, was so strukturierte Arbeit tun.
Ja, auch Portale auf dem
Ja, ja, okay.
Das ist wie gesagt, aber den
Ja.
sehen wir mal eine Videokonferenz per den Verband, und so.
Klingt doch
Und dann wird auch ganz dran gearbeitet am Projekt.
Mir ist doch super. Ich meine, du bist ja auch gut, kannst du ja aussuchen und so. Das ist doch toll.
Dann hatten wir auf der Arbeit vor langer Zeit noch einen Englischkurs.
Ja.
Und der Kollege, der das gemacht hat, irgendwann nicht mehr gebraucht. Aber dem macht halt so viel Spaß. Ich mache heute immer 17 bis 18 Uhr eine Stunde. Das sind halt 2 alte Arbeitskollegen.
Ja, schön. Ja.
Das steckt auch im Raum ein bisschen. Eine Woche keine gesprochen und war dann die Zeit. Ist das jetzt Simple Present oder Continuous oder
Ich hab das schon immer gehasst, scheiße. Meine guten Zeiten, an die ich mich erinnere, waren einfach mit irgendwelchen Iren oder Engländern in Thailand irgendwie sich auf den Tisch zu saufen. Und dann hatte ich immer das Gefühl, danach bin ich besser Englisch. Also, ich stößt mir zwar immer irgendwie so jeden Abend dann irgendwann mal auf mit zunehmendem Alkoholisierungsgrad und die Grenzen der eigenen Vokabulars.
genau, dann kommt halt vor.
Ja, aber das versteht sich. Ja, eben, genau. Man versteht sich und das animiert dann total viel zu reden. Das finde ich immer ein Highlight.
Ja, das ist
Ja, zum Beispiel. Nee, das ist so. Das finde ich auch.
Trottel zusammensitzen und Probleme lösen. Kommt kein neuer englischer Kontakt.
Nee, das stimmt schon. Ja.
Ja, und dann ich ein bisschen fit bleibe oder werde.
Klar, das sollte man schon immer dabei bleiben.
Studio.
Ich habe damit auch angefangen. Ich fahre oft mit dem Fahrrad zur Arbeit und auch gibt halt in größeren Städten auch Berufssport, da kommst du halt billig rein. Und ich wohne halt direkt zu Zeiten zentrumsnah. Da haben die so ein zentrales Fitnessstudio mit vier Angehörigen und 5 Links und das kostet nichts. Das ist wirklich, das ist so 10 Stunden im Auto fahren. Ist ja egal, das ist immer aus der Zeit.
Kursplan, das ist dann auch Ziele für Synergy geholt. Das Synergy wurde dann
Kosten?
verschiedene Geräte macht.
Achso, okay. Aber auch schon so in den Studios.
Ja, und als Synergy-Board dann extra Mittwochs morgens für ältere Leute. Und zum Arbeiten macht man nicht das nicht machen. Letztendlich dann mitmachen.
Nee, ich finde es aber
Das
super.
ist auch ganz schön anstrengend.
Ja.
Ist auch nett, dass er von 10 Leuten so plus noch mein Alter.
Ich finde es super. Klar, super. Nee, ich finde es auch super. Ich bin
Wenn
gerade
ich dann noch montags und freitags hingehe und dann
ja.
nur an diesen Minus hier. Ich habe es einmal noch eingestellt und 50 Sekunden
Ja.
Training.
Das ist super.
Beine,
Ja.
Arme.
Ja, ja. Ja, ich versuche noch mit den Studentinnen irgendwelche CrossFit-Gruppenkurse zu halten, um mich total lächerlich zu machen. Sehr motiviert. Klar, ich meine, ja, ich muss auch irgendwie was machen. Aber, also wenn du dir die Statistiken anguckst, später sterben das ohne Muskeln. Also, die sterben lässt sich vielleicht nicht.
Der Top war fest. Sachen, die man hat.
Genau.
Mal auf Enkelkinder aufpassen.
Ja, stimmt, das ist gut. Das ist klasse.
Arbeiten. Und so Enkelkind von Schule abholen. Das macht Spaß und so.
Ja, das ist auch cool. Ja, ich bin mittlerweile richtig im Arbeitsleben ja drin.
Wenn du das nicht mit China oder so machst, dann ist das gar keine
Nee, das Bearbeitungsfeld ist halt riesig. Also das ist halt sehr anstrengend. Also man scheitert an sich selber, man merkt halt, man wird auch müde. Mein Plan von vor 3 Jahren ist ja jetzt mittlerweile auch schon weg. Genau. Nächste Beispiel ist, wir haben jetzt 2 Wochen Zeit, eine TTAD-Ausschreibung für 106 Stellen irgendwie auf die Bahn zu kriegen. Ja, nix.
Was man da reinschreiben sollte.
Doch. Ich meine, irgendwie erstmal seine Kollegin Marke, wir sind zwar auch viel zusammen, die will das so machen mit dem früher. Ja, da haben wir den gekostet. Also Ausgaben gemacht, 300 für und ich denke, ey, nein, wir brauchen auch ganz viele K.O.-Kriterien. Artifacts, TTAD-Entwickler, du musst halt alles hinschreiben. Du musst ein System schreiben, welche Extension hast du. Und dann, Hochschule ist eine Dickschifffahrt. Du guckst, das ist stabil. Ja, aber wir brauchen Support. Wir brauchen Leute, die gar nicht können, wenn was kaputt ist. Wir brauchen Leute, die uns Updates anspielen. Wir finden Bugs, die wollen wir behoben haben. Das ist ja unglücklich. Und wenn wir noch Geld über haben, so läuft das halt. Agile Methode sagen wir das. Das wird irgendwie beibehalten. Da treffen wir uns halt einmal im Monat und wird dann halt so ein Scrum organisiert. Wir haben wir besprechen das. Und das Tolle, das wird dann quasi, mir fehlt jetzt das richtige Wort. Ich nenne es jetzt mal operationalisiert, aber das trifft es jetzt nicht. Wir machen das konkret, wie das gelöst wird. Das ist jetzt super. Wir hatten mit den Entwicklern gesprochen, mit Coding. Und teilweise sind nur so Unterstützungsprojekte. Und da wird dann einfach überlegen, wie setzen wir das um. Die Story ist zum Beispiel schlicht und ergreifend, wenn man im Moment die Person aus, wenn die Person ausgeschrieben steht, dann ist die fucking Überschrift oder Kontakt. Braucht man nicht. Weg damit. Weißt du? Also man ist auch wieder nicht. Dann reden wir drüber und ich sage, mach vor einem Jahr was Skript. Wenn es irgendwie kompliziert ist, ein Typo Skript oder so, weißt du? Prio auf Dirt. Genau. Irgendwie ist mir scheißegal, ob das Element da irgendwie eine halbe Sekunde zu sehen ist. Weißt du, sowas irgendwie nachgeladen, das ist ja auch über solche Sachen diskutieren wir dann, dass sie was sagen. Wir führen halt ein begrenztes Budget oder sagen, das machen wir nicht. Wir lassen das schätzen. Bei uns haben wir irgendwie so T-Shirt-Größen gehabt. Ja, schon schade. Ich bin mal gespannt, ob das noch eine Stunde oder so oder 1,5 oder so, ein M, eine XS. Oder so T-Shirt-Größen. Sortierung, wir haben gleichzeitig Controlling. Das heißt, die Autor hat Freiheit, wir haben ein bisschen Controlling und wir machen uns nicht kaputt, wir halten uns das nicht auf. So ist das viele Fahren, das ist das letzte Jahr. Das heißt, wir alle haben ein Budget orientiert, das heißt, wir haben ein Budget, wir Smileys können wir nicht. Sonderzeichen waren also, speichert sich bei Smiley. Das ist einfach auch das. Also, ja, so ein Scheiß nicht. So rum. Die Bauern gesehen haben, vor 500 Jahren angesetzt, die wurden auch nicht. Das zweite Mal ist es hier. Ja, das ist so richtig so. Genau, ja, genau. Also das ist, das macht immer Spaß, weil ich die Sachen reinbringen kann. Also früher nicht. Zu gut 30 Genau, meine Kollegin weiß zum Beispiel nicht, was es alles für die Wie auch immer, ich weiß das, jetzt mit den Entwicklern,
Ich weiß nicht, haben wir jetzt zu diesem Brot den Hexcode?
jo, so. Nee, und ich diese Anforderung würde erstmal irgendwie so zwischen Technik und
Ich habe erst gestern mal so
noch mehr Stellen.
nur wir sind einfach wirklich so ähnlich.
Genau, und wir sind halt nicht kaputt, wir sind abgesetzt. Die Abwehrgeschwindigkeit ist bei uns genau, mit dem Juri hat sich die zusammengearbeitet in der Agentur, bevor die Strategie wechselt hat. Das ist aufgespart. Entschuldigung, das ist Klingelcode. Und da wurde halt verleistet, aber viele Methoden gesprochen über Leistungsberichte. Er war der Einzige, der auf die Gewalt ja, und wir haben schon, weil es nicht schlecht anfühlt, eine Halbzeit geklärt. Und dann gab es Probleme mit der Politik. Und dann wurde auch gesagt, so, wir haben ist nicht mein Job. Das ist nicht mein Job, wenn ich das mache. Ich will es nicht machen. Ausschreiben.
Nee, Website.
Wir haben keine Erfahrung. Das ist
start. Hello and welcome to my talk about next-gen TYPO3. We will have a sneak peek into the version 14 together. A warning, some of the features you're seeing are still in beta. We are developing them in the next few weeks and we'll finish and polish them. The videos you see in that presentation are from version 14.2 coming out at the end of the month. Who am I? I'm Florian, you can call me Flix. I'm working at v14 for over 12 years now. The first 10 years I worked there as a project manager and technical conceptor. Now I'm the head of product development. And I had the pleasure to work in a few teams over the last 5 months that created some of the features you will see in that presentation. And my job was to get the feedback of editors into the backend. Who is v14? This is us. We are a small team. Most of us are living around Stuttgart area. We are 23 people, and we have a big heart for TYPO3. Maybe you know some of my colleagues' names, Benny Mack, core developers like Olli or Lolli, or to mention our container guy, Achim. So, topics for today. We'll discuss some of the features. First, we will have a look at the modernized backend and some new ideas and concepts that will go into version 14. Then we will have a look at some better and new tools for editors in this new version. We will have a look at Camino, the first out-of-the-box front-end theme. And we will have some insights into technical improvements. I will give the clicker to my colleague Olli after that so he can do the technical stuff. So how do we get here? With some ideas that are coming into version 14's backend. We collected some feedback from our and other agencies' customers, feedback from the jobs to be done interviews from TYPO3, feedbacks from agencies who are trying to get TYPO3 sold in a pitch or trying to get the upgrade sold to their customers, and of course, some of the goals of the TYPO3 CMS product strategy. This was the base for creating new features for version 14. So when I talk about feedback that we are implemented here, it's not my personal feedback I wanted to have in TYPO3, it's a bigger thing. And when I talk about we, I talk about us. It's the community who worked on those features. It's not me. I think the less part of all the stuff you're seeing today. So we is always you, contributors, developers, people who are in the TYPO3 community. Let's start with a modernized backend. In the next slides, I will talk about the new module menu. I will show you a new way to create pages, and I think one of the biggest UX changes in the last years of canvas editing. So, not sure, has anyone seen TYPO3 version 14 yet? Raise your hands. Okay, preaching the choir. Has anyone not seen version 14's backend? Okay, cool. Of course, Daniel. This is for you. So, what we did, we reorganized the left-hand module menu that you know for a long time. We cleared the naming of the modules, and we gave every module a new icon set to improve the user guidance, and therefore, with the new backend, we wanted to significantly user guidance and navigation, make this easier for everyone. While we talked about that and thought about that, we had a role-based approach. The main focus with version 14 is editors. The idea was faster access to tools they use in everyday work, and these had to be better. Of course, we also have administrators, we have integrators, and we have system maintainers. The sorting of the modules are done like that, bit like that. But the main focus was on editors. So if you are a superpower user for the last 30 years in TYPO3, then something is wrong because TYPO3 is not that old, but you maybe have a bit of a struggle to get used to the new backend. But as a power developer, you're not the main goal, you're not the main target group, the editors were. Let's have a look. For anyone who hasn't seen it, this is TYPO3 version 14.2 with workspaces installed, so the red thing is workspaces, we will talk about that later. So it's not only a new purple color, because we all have purple now, it's also a resorting in the module menu, as I told. We have content, we have a media, full tile, we have sites, administration and systems. And of course, we also have a dark version of that new theme as well. As you can see here, this is a really easy editor's view, like content, media, and sites for link management. It's very intuitive, it's very clear, and very good structured. With the new theme, we have 3 themes in total. This is the fresh one, but we also have the modern one, and we kept, of course, the classic one as well, which really looks good with these new icons that are now white and orange in the black version. Improved page creation. So we all know how to create a page in TYPO3. You drag and drop it somewhere, just select the page type, you drag and drop it, and hopefully you really get the target where you want to move your page. Sometimes that's not the case. Maybe it's me, but maybe it's the system itself. So we thought about a new idea to create pages. We kept drag and drop, so you can always do that, but after that you have a more easy positioning within the page tree. We created, or we are creating at the moment, they are still coding on it, a step-by-step guidance through page creation, with the target to never forget a required field while creating a page. So at the moment, you just can take a shortcut, put it somewhere in the page tree, give it a name, and leave it. And the main thing, the shortcut, the page required thing you need, is not filled out. This is not happening with a page creation wizard. And we want to keep safe that all relevant fields are in view, especially for special page types like blog post types or news or events. Let's have a look. I'll have to pause the video sometimes because it's a little bit too fast. You will get a new page creation button over your page tree. It's moved up to the left in the meantime, but this is a working document from last week. So you click the button, you come to the first step, and in the first step you are selecting where you want to put your page. So is it a subpage from something, or you want to put the page underneath or between the other 2 pages? In the second step, you check out which page type you want to put on that position. Sometimes you cannot put blog posts in the page position where you want to try it, so this step keeps that in mind, that you only can place the page types that you can use at this point in this selection. In the next step, you fill out the most relevant fields, like my page title. This is a default page, my page title. I have access to the URL slug. I can go to hide or unhide my page. And when I have a special page type like blog or news and events, where I have to fill in like metadata or a picture or an author, there would be a next step coming after that to fill in all mandatory and required and recommended fields. After that, you get a confirmation, like in all the wizards in TYPO3, and a finish step. And in the finish step, you have the option to create a new page or just to leave the page tree. And the page creation wizard is capable of, if you're tracking a standard page somewhere in the page tree, the first 2 steps of the page creation wizard then will be skipped because we know the position and we know the page type you are using. The next thing is, in my belief, one of the biggest UX changes in the last releases. We introduced a context panel into version 14. So you can edit your page properties and even your content elements in a right-hand context panel and stay in context while you're working on your pages. This is more intuitive and a very efficient editing experience. Let me show you that. So, I go to the page property of this random page I choose, and the context panel is coming out from the right side. I can work on that, fill out all the informations I need or I have to change. I click Save, and I'm back in the context where I worked before. And that also is working with content elements. You just can open it, bold it, or change picture, something like that, save it, and you're back, always staying in the context where you're working. I did an hour of translation stuff in a version 14 project of ours. So I had the English version left, and the right-hand side I had the German version, and the editing with this context panel is really a game changer. It's a different kind of working in the backend. We also introduced backend breadcrumbs in version 14. So we have a clickable breadcrumb across many backend areas. This helps you that you stay oriented, even in complexer page trees. And it's a step-by-step navigation through your hierarchy, even back to the module level where you started. I can also give you an insight into that. We are in the previous module at the moment, and I'm on a page, and I can click on the parent page of this and the parent page of this, and I even can go back to the module. And this breadcrumb in the backend we are using in very diverse ways, like the content page creation wizard as well. In version 14, there are some small changes for content staging. So when we talk about content staging, we are talking about workspaces in TYPO3. So the workspaces selector moved from the top panel to the module menu, and also got clearer and accessible colors for different workspaces. So when you are the editor, or you're responsible for many different workspaces, like a content stage and a product stage and a news stage, they have different colors where you can identify them. This helps you to get faster recognition, of course. And workspace labels are always shown in the top menu. So when you have a small screen and you have no modules on the side, or you have collapsed the module bar, you always know in which workspace you're currently working. Let me show you that. So you see the red banner at the top. It's the live workspace environment. Let's see which other workspaces we have. We have a content stage, it's lime. We have a new stage, which is blue, and you have a purple other stage something. You see, it's always marked up here which current workspace you're in. And the red one of the live workspace always reminds me a bit of my radio days back when I worked in a radio station. It's always red, is always on air, your life. That's it for the backend in version 14. So let's have a look at some better tools we implemented in version 14. So, you all know redirects. Redirects, formerly known, now link management. Redirects expands in version 14 into a central link management hub. So, it combines all link-related tasks in one place. It reduces, therefore, the maintenance and the context switching. You see, it's always context. Give the user context where he belongs. I thought about doing a drinking game with you guys. Like every time I say context, you have to do a shot, but I'm not sure if we go to the presentation. And this was a big wish from many customers with big teams. They want to know a small information detail. Who created a redirect, a QR code, or a short link, and when? When you have big teams, you think, there's a redirect, but do we really need this redirect still? So, it was Ben 2 years ago. Let's ask him. Or maybe not because it's 2 years old, something like that. So let's have a look into, there are 2 new tools coming into link management. We have QR codes because it's 2026. Let's do QR codes. You get a QR code module where you can create PNG and SVG QR codes in the backend. And we have short links. Also some handy, many of you guys have an extension for that, I think, but now it's in the core, it's in TYPO3. You can shorten your links for presentations, for social media campaigns and all that stuff. Let's have a look into link management, which really what got the most love, I think, in version 14. So when we click on link management, you have 4 modules in there. Redirects, it's still redirects like you know redirects. It's basically the same. We have the QR code module. We will create a QR code later. You have the short URL feature in there. This was a feature that you guys created at a sprint, I think, right, Odi? Yeah. And we have the check links feature moved from somewhere in the backend to the link management area because it's about link and checking if your links are still healthy. So it should be in the link management section and not somewhere else in the backend. To create a QR code, it's easy. You just select your domain and the target you want to link to, like a page or a content element on a page. You click Save. You get a QR code as an SVG and PNG file in different sizes, and you can just download it. So, it's not super magic, it's a QR code, but there will be, I'll show you some magic things. Maybe you're thinking now, it's 2026, QR codes, really? But customers love that. They are using QR codes, and at the moment, most of the customers who haven't created or got an own extension from some of you guys, they're using external tools, and many of those external tools are costing money. And to have that in the system is super handy for marketeers because they just can create a QR code and they see how many hits those QR codes get. And there's basic tracking built in. So in the module, I can see how many hits I got and when the last hit of this QR code was. But the most handy thing is, let's think you have thousands of flyers in your warehouse with a QR code on and your link target is changing. So you go to your QR code module, you're changing the link you want to link to, update your link target, and your QR code printed on thousands of flyers is still working but linking to another link target. Translations. I think translations, as a project manager, I always got the feedback that translations are complex, and they are. If you have many languages in your backend, it's really complex to get an idea of how translations are working. We haven't found the best solution on the planet, but we did some changes in the translation workflow, and I think this can help. We unified the translation workflow across all backend modules. We did a step-by-step guidance with explicit user confirmation in every step. You saw that in the page creation wizard. And we have a clean extension point for services like DeepL and AI translation tools from you guys that you want to give your customers without hacking stuff against the core. It's now super easy to get an endpoint in there and your customer can use DeepL, Olama, whatever. Let's have a look. I'm translating this page into German, and this is the first step that is loaded. And the steps before that, my original language, English, and my language I want to translate to, German, are skipped. I just go back in that video, but they are skipped because we know that information. We are starting here in the translation workflow. And you see the different content areas. All the content you are using is in there. In the next step, you can select if you want to translate or copy your content, like you know, and then you have the option to give your user a translation tool in there, clicking, get a summary, and after that it's finished and all the content you selected is translated. Good. I think one of the most problems, or the biggest problems of the last years was to sell TYPO3 to clients. It looked a bit outdated, and sometimes we get the feedback it's too nerdy. And I think it was easier sometimes to sell TYPO3 to an IT department because you can say, hey, we now support PHP 8.2. But when marketeers and editors are on the table, they want to really have changes in their daily life. And the new version 14 of TYPO3 makes the back-end editing more intuitive. You always are context aware where you are, and that's more efficient. It helps streamline processes, helps editors to stay focused, and I really think the tools we build in there help to simplify daily tasks in the work of all the editors out there who are working for 4 to 6 hours in a TYPO3 backend. Who has seen Camino? Less people, cool. So what is Camino? Camino is a TYPO3 version 14 extension with ready-to-use sample content. It includes a basic theme available in 4 different colors, and it turns a fresh installation in a real good starting point because it enables the user to begin with content right away instead of starting with an empty front end. This is maybe not the feature for you as agencies, but this is something that's really good for people who are installing TYPO3 and they're having a theme they can work with. Let's have a look at Camino. This is basically the start page. You get Camino in 4 different colors. Burnt orange, which is the default, AI purple, digital blue, and forest green. And this is not an AI creation, so the whole theme was designed and created by one of our colleagues in Stuttgart, Laura. What's included? You get 3 ready-to-use backend page templates, a start page, a content page, and a content page with a side column. Of course, a header navigation with a flyout menu and a language switcher. A footer with social media icons and a footer navigation, and a meta footer for all your legal and utility links you have to use. You get content elements, content modules as well, of course. There's a hero stage in 3 variants. There's a big picture, a smaller picture, and a text-only version. You get core content elements such as text and text image. There's an author and a testimonial element for storytelling. You get different teasers, text teasers, and a text media teaser grid. And many of those modules come in different colors and backgrounds depending on the theme you're choosing. So it's not only a white page with some stuff on it, you can change the background colors of your content elements. Let's have a look. That's Camino. With the content that comes, you also can learn stuff about the Camino as well. So it's really handy to, if you want to plan to walk the Camino, just install the basic theme. You get some ideas. So this is the start page with the footer, social media, footer navigation, and meta footer, and the different content elements on the start page. Let's go into a content page with the side panel on the right, different kinds of content elements like text media, text only. This is the smaller hero version, and this is the content page without the sidebar, so you have more space. And we have a version with the hero without any content in it, so small hero. Yeah. Camino's already in use. Here we see the University Days website, which is, to my knowledge, the first page out there in the wild who is using the new Camino theme. So it's easy to use. Install TYPO3 version 14, use the new Camino theme, and you can work with it. It's not for everyone, of course, but it's a handy tool for something like that. Finally. I also recommend to go to Mats's presentation tomorrow. Mats is the guy up here. He will show you some handy features about visual editing while using Camino. So this is a presentation you should see tomorrow. So it's not for everyone, but for the guys, for people who want to use TYPO3 like they use WordPress, install it and you're ready to go, Camino enables that. It's a content-ready starting point. It helps users launch faster, works without custom front-end development, and let you start with real content immediately. So, the new backend, new tools, and the first front-end theme. Now let's go into technical improvements, but Olli is the expert, I'm not.
Hi, I'm Olli. I'm also working at v14. As you can see, I'm doing core development most of my work time and also my spare time. And yeah, we did a lot of technical improvements also under the hood so that basic editor improvements were possible, which I will show you. One of them, the first thing we started was rework the whole scheduler module, because we wanted to do this a long time ago already, because this was mostly one of the last modules which used a custom controller to show form elements. So form engine was not used there, and we reworked the whole scheduler thing to use TCA under the hood. So if you create your own scheduler tasks, you don't need to write this kind of field controllers to render your fields. You can just use TCA with all its features. So all types, all options, all field wizards are available. And with changing that, we also reworked the whole backend module itself. So you have more options, you have more possibilities to customize this. For example, you can color your scheduler task groups so you can identify them better. Another thing is the form management module, which in every version does not get this love it should get. So there's also big props to Joshua Vogel, which does also do a lot of form management improvements also in his spare time. That's really cool. So we have a lot of new APIs, a lot of new events which can be used to work with your forms, with the form handling, the data processing behind it, and also this huge YAML configuration, sometimes kind of mess if you don't find the option you need. We improved it a lot. We reduced some areas, made some configuration options which were not working the way they were documented, so they are now working like it's documented. And then we go to another topic, which is page and content rendering. In the last version, we already started with making content rendering even more easy for integrators. So therefore, we introduced the page view content object and also two data providers, which allowed you to use 6 lines of TypoScript code with those 2 data providers to render your content in the front end. And we got one step further in this version, and now it's possible to more or less with 0 configuration. So actually it's 3 lines, or if you do it in short, it might be 2 lines of TypoScript, which allows you to really render the whole page without any more configuration necessary. This is working with the backend layouts. So the content in your backend layouts is automatically fetched and grouped in the columns which are used in the backend, and also automatically transformed from the raw database values to the resolved resources like images. So you don't have to use any data provider data processor, you can just do 3 lines of TypoScript and have everything in your fluid, with also a new DTO object, which is called content area, which allows in your fluid, in every content element template, to have the context in which column this content element is currently rendered. So you can, for example, in a text media element say, okay, if this text media element is currently rendered in column sidebar, you don't want to show, for example, the image or something like that. We have an all-new resource API. This means we are now able to reference resources which, for example, are in different directories. They don't need to be in an extension, in a side package. They can be anywhere in the system. You can reference them, and this is streamlined. So there's also a new key, which is PKG for package, which you can use in the future. It includes automatic cache busting by default. Then we also raised Fluid to Fluid version 5. Thanks to Simon for a lot of great improvements in this new version. I had 3 of them here outlined. I think just today we merged a patch with improves the exceptions. So when you have an error in your Fluid templates, the exception now shows which template is the problem here. So you don't have to debug a lot. We have the Fluid components now available in the core. And yeah, we have also faster and more strict types, which means if you have your view helpers and you define which type of view helper argument should be, it must really this argument. You don't have to make null checks and stuff like that anymore. We also improved a lot of stuff behind the page tree, a lot of stuff in the web components, the JavaScript side of the page tree, which usually you as a developer will not touch, but also the PHP side. We introduced new events to actually enhance the search functionality. TYPO3 is using those already. For example, it's now possible to copy a front-end URL, paste it in the search tree field, and TYPO3 will automatically resolve the corresponding page in the page tree. That's really cool for editors. And we still have no translated page tree. You still have only the English page tree. Therefore, we also introduced that you can search for the translated page title, and you will find the corresponding English version. We have reworked the translation domains. You all know the LLL syntax for your language labels. This has now been reworked, so they are shorter, they are domain specific, and they work with the industry standards by integrating the Symfony translation component. XBase also got a little bit of love. You can now use Symfony validators, and together with that, we also enabled that you can use PHP attributes for configuring, for example, the validators directly on your properties and your methods. Also the dashboard got a bit of improvement. You finally can configure each widget individually. For example, a good example is the RSS widget. If you wanted to have 3 different RSS feeds in your backend, you had to create 3 different widgets where you in the configuration decided which feed should be shown. And with the configurable widgets now, you can configure this individually on each widget on your dashboard. Another thing is the data handler, the main engine in TYPO3 for managing and processing data. Yeah, we modernized and streamlined a lot of APIs. We also introduced new commands. For example, if you want to discard a record, you have a dedicated command for it. And the last thing I want to talk about is the module API. We also improved the module API when you work with your own backend modules, for example. There are new capabilities for those modules. For example, we have the top module promotion. This means if you have a first level module, for example, page, and a submodule, I don't know, think about anything, and it's the only module, it's the only submodule, it can be promoted as the top level module. We use that for our media module, which was the fileless module beforehand, because it's in 90% of all TYPO3 installations out there, the only module below file. So we thought about, okay, make this just a top-level module, but not always, because there might be some use cases where other modules are in there, so only promote it if it is necessary. And more such capabilities were introduced. And last thing is we streamlined the module identifiers, as Flix already showed you. We renamed modules to better let the editors better understand what they are actually for. And in the same step, we also changed the identifier which are behind them, fully backwards compatible with aliases, so you can use them. Yes, that was from my technical side.
So you can say TYPO3 version 14 gives also developers a more modern foundation. It reduces legacy complexity, improves API and extensibility, and makes projects safer to maintain. This is a slide you could use every time we are releasing a version of TYPO3, but it's true, it's still true. All right, so we are here at the moment on the dotted line. In 2 or 3 weeks, in 2 weeks, there is the feature freeze with version 14.2. Then there's version 14.3. In the meantime, we will polish everything. And then on the 21st of April this year, the new version of TYPO3 is coming out, and you can use it. This release puts TYPO3 on an equal footing with all the other CMS on the market, I think. To get a key takeaway about TYPO3 version 14, it focuses on editors and their daily work. It makes TYPO3 more intuitive, more competitive with other CMSs, and it's easier to use for new and existing users. Yeah. Thank you very much. I have one slide left before you're clapping. If you're living in Baden-Württemberg, or how we call it, the land, you can also join the camp in Heidelberg. It's in May, and it's also the new TYPO3 camp for whole Baden-Württemberg after the Stuttgart camp is not happening anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Some chocolates for you. Also for your offer. Thank you.
If you want to have a look in version 14 and you don't have it on the computer, I think Ollie and myself both have a version. Have a look. There are other people there as well.
It's funny what I saw with the new page creation. It's actually something you invented because it's still in there but hidden. The positioning. In the past we had this positioning thing that you could say, okay, I want to have this page in between those.
Yeah, it was there. It sit in the records module. And to be honest, it's not the final work how the positioning of pages will be done. What you saw was the working thing, maybe the thing we are pushing into version 14.2, but there are other ideas around there how you can do the positioning step, but one step after the other. Maybe we just implement this in version 14, and then there's a version 15 where we can make things even better.
Cool.
You're free to go. hast immer noch das Klassik oder das Modern Theme, wenn dir die Farbe nicht gefällt, weil dir die runde Ecke aus irgendeinem Grund da oben das Auge aussticht, warum auch immer. Aber für den Rest ist es tatsächlich, wenn man von Editors ausgeht, kann man sagen, ganz frisch anfangen oder die da jeden Tag dran arbeiten. Ich liebe das ja selber. Ich war jetzt 5 Monate mit sehr vielen Menschen in Teams, die Core Developer, die haben ihren Blick auf das Projekt gesagt. Der Redakteurbeschluss sollte ein Backend haben, in dem er maximal 2 Hauptleute und den Rest nicht zieht. Also, eure Aufgabe als Agentur ist es schon auch, dieses Backend möglichst einfach nutzen zu machen. Mit den Änderungen, die wir jetzt gemacht haben, wird es noch einfacher. So, dass es für dich als Core-Developer schlechter wird vielleicht, mag sein oder anders, aber du bist nicht die Zielgruppe dieses Content-Management-Systems. Ehrlicherweise. Ja, natürlich, aber du weißt, was ich meine. Verstehst du? Leute sagen auch, also der diesen Kunden ab, das kann ich auch. I don't care. Also, das ist okay. Ja, manche Sachen werden ja auch egal. Dieses Off-Canvas-Editing, dieses Context-Management ist wirklich was dir deine Arbeit, eine andere Art von Arbeit gibt. Du kannst es abschalten, wenn du gar keinen Bock drauf hast. Aber ich glaube, das ist ein Unterschied. So. Und in den letzten 5 Monaten bin ich nervt, wenn ich so einiges zu sagen, lass diese Dinge ausprobieren. Wir können das Feedback aus der 14 einsammeln und in der 15 besser machen. Aber wenn wir nicht die ganze Zeit aus Angst, dass wir was nicht perfekt, also nicht einbauen und damit kommt das Produkt nicht weiter. Das Produkt muss weiterhin perfekt sein im Managementsystem. Vor allem jetzt, wo sich Wordpress in den Fuß geschossen hat und sich merkt, wie die USA öffnen, weil Leute sagen, Wordpress taugt an der Stelle nicht mehr so. Ja, so. Ich möchte lieber ein anderes Open Source System. Das ist eine Chance für uns. Es ist halt 2026 und nicht 2020. Ja, wahrscheinlich.
Ja, okay. Aber wie gesagt, gut ist das ich habe jetzt diese Präsentationsvorbereitung diese Seite von Englisch auf Deutsch. Pharma, einfach um das zu können. Und zwar nicht jeden Tag. Der Speicher ist auch unser Hauptschaftsspiel. Die ganze Zeit, in der ich hier gerade bin, Sie haben gesagt, das ist, glaube ich, der UX-Challenge. Also allein so eine User-Startpage, Speicher schließen, die Grundidee dafür, also die ursprüngliche Vision, die im November, Ende November war das nur für die Seite abgeschafft. Ja, ich erinnere mich. Und es freut mich sogar, dass Sie das einfach ist auch nur konsequent. Ja.
Ich weiß nicht, das kam mir einfach irgendwie, als ich es gemacht habe, dachte ich mir, hey, ich kann ja eigentlich jetzt, weil es ist ja am Ende habe ich einfach nur quasi den Link zu einer Webkomponente auf diesen Button Trigger. Und ob ich da jetzt Pages oder TT Content als Variable eigentlich ist scheißegal. Und dann ging es halt und dachte mir, gut, dann ist das ganz falsch.
Ja. Aber das TCL ist nicht irgendwie der Nachpass. Ja, nee, gar nicht. Aber das ist
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Test.
words.
We're live? Okay.
Oh no.
All right, let's get started. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our talk about the relaunch of TYPO3.com and TYPO3.org. We want to talk about how we planned the project, how we executed on it, and the reality of it, which we won't leave out. Before we get started, quick introduction. I am Luana. I am the communications lead at the TYPO3 company, also known as TYPO3 GmbH. And I have been on the job since July of 2023, and I'm not alone.
Yes, I'm Andy. I'm the core developer and senior PHP developer at TYPO3 GmbH for 7 years already. Yeah.
Yes, so we are two of the representatives for a big group, which I will get into, that was responsible for this relaunch, that we conducted throughout 2025, and this is our agenda. We will talk about the project scope and who was responsible for what in this relaunch. I press play for the timing. About the project organization, how we went about it. I will briefly look into the layout and design that went into the project, how we got the content over the finish line through a long time, the new news hub that is being hosted on this new website, and the actual go live of the project and the SEO impact are changes made overall. Okay, so let's talk about the project scope and what we had to take on. We'll start with TYPO3.com before the relaunch. So TYPO3.com, as you might know, is operated and published by the TYPO3 GmbH. It is the business platform of the TYPO3 project that focuses on helping people adopt TYPO3, selling TYPO3, and market TYPO3. It offers resources for decision makers and agencies alike, so this is what we're here for. And we showcase solutions, our partners, and products like the ELTS certification and multiple services. Now, the numbers that I'm about to show, we'll take them, please, with a grain of salt. We all know about ad blockers. We know about consent management. So it is more about the numbers that we'll be showing at the end of this presentation, so the changes throughout. So please don't take them too literally, but let's look at them. In the year 2025, an average per month of 40,000 website visits went into TYPO3.com. with 265,000 page impressions, and we had 29 editors officially in the backend that were taking care of 145 content pages and 500 blog posts. Now, when I say content pages, I mean the actual content pages. I Our sitemap also delivers partner profiles that are delivered on the .com domain, but this is not what I mean here. I mean actual pages that are handled. Same for typo3.org. Let's look at what the website is supposed to reflect to the outside world. It is the home of the TYPO3 community. It offers the documentation and technical resources to use and adopt TYPO3. It offers contribution and participation. We invite to collaborate and, of course, become members within the TYPO3 Association. And it is operated and published by the TYPO3 Association, meaning Matthias Bolt-Lesniak. I'm speaking also on his behalf today for this project. Let's look at the numbers. And on average per month in the year 2025, we had 106,000 website visits, 1.3 million page impressions, so far more. 34 editors in the back end, and here we look at different numbers. More than 400 content pages, more than 2,000 articles since the site has been live, and 500 plus events that were being hosted there. Why relaunch, one might ask. So there were legacy structures. We were handling old, the home of TYPO3 backend. In our backend, we had outdated language variants that were no longer being maintained by the respective community for whatever reasons, but yeah, they were there and holding us back. We wanted to consolidate the backends, meaning typo3.org and typo3.com up until now were not being hosted within the same backend, and we needed a system upgrade desperately to version 13. And now this point, the long overdue content revamp of typo3.org, Luisa will know what I'm talking about. You're looking at the title here on the right of the letter of intent that was written in 2019, and the typo3.org relaunch in terms of content was largely completed by 2022, but never executed. So also we had to translate then the content from 2022 into 2025 when we actually got to do the work. Our team was growing, so that was also helpful in getting this relaunch done, meaning we had more developers on site, namely Marvin Buchmann. The communications team was growing. My person, we had 2 more colleagues as editors in the new team. We had a brand new UX designer who had a big, big influence. Hi to Alex in Mönchengladbach. I promised I would do this. That had a big influence on this relaunch. And the content also on typo3.com was outdated, and it did not match the search intent of our visitors. We could tell this by doing vast analysis, knowing that, for instance, the case studies were way more important that we knew before we started this project. So yeah, we needed to match the search intent coming to typo3.com. Talking about the project organization. It started with a kickoff in January 2025 by Frank Negler, our dear CTO here in row 1. First of all, we did an internal kickoff at the TYPO3 company, short T3G, where the definition of needs for every department was documented. So us as the communications team and the editors actually working with the back end, partner management and partner visibility, was considered, of course, the CEO, the overall goals, what do we want to reflect on typo3.com, and the same happened with the stakeholders of the TYPO3 Association, namely the admins, the server team, the editor-in-chief, Matthias Bolt-Lesniak, the head developer, Spoonie, aka Thomas Löffler, and other community representatives, for instance, the marketing team, when it came to their needs. From an organizational standpoint, we conducted weekly relaunch team calls involving the art director, Markus Schwarz, our UX designer, Alexander Hahn, our CTO, Frank Negler, 2 typo3.com developers, Andy here and Marvin Buchmann, Spoonie, Thomas Löffler from the .org side, and myself for typo3.com. Later, I will get into how we got the content across through editorial sprints, but of course, there was a lot of development involved, an ongoing effort for which Andy will take over.
Thank you. So, I'm a developer. Some of you are also developers. And what do developers love the most? Pizza. Yeah, pizza and coordination. So we thought about how can we coordinate our work in a way where we don't get distracted by outside factors we cannot influence directly. First thing was we set up a developer board in Asana, which is for developers only, so we don't get any management-related noise, if I would put it that way. So we don't see tickets like we need a new graphic here or we need some new text, because that's not related, not important for us. Marvin, as already said, was one of our developers who was working on the relaunch, and he was exclusively tasked 4 days per week for this. Nothing doing else here to get this project over the line. And to keep the feedback loops short and precise, we had permanent Discord calls where basically everybody of us was in a channel for 8 hours a day, excluding lunch breaks, of course. And of course, we have also our dailies, and there was summarized what were the achievements and which struggles we had with the previous day. And yeah. And what had we to do actually on the development side to get things done? Of course, we need an overview of the existing websites. So we have the TYPO3.org, we have the TYPO3.com, which are 2 different TYPO3 setups with different versions and interesting configuration and stuff like that. While we did that, Alex implemented the basic layout and the structures for the layout and put many hours into thinking of that, but Luana will come to that later. We migrated the existing code to year 2025, finally, and we also used the possibility to drop old stuff which is not required anymore or was questionable at the first place. And because we love challenges and we reuse existing infrastructure, we migrated our code from Elasticsearch to Solr while having no experience in Solr at all. Great. And like I said, we are reusing existing infrastructure. Our project is hosted on GitLab, and the old TYPO3 website was posted on GitLab as well, so we merged the history of the Git repositories altogether. So what's the basic setup of the project? It's what you would like to expect. It's a current TYPO3 version 14, using Composer, as every good project should use. And of course, we also had proper background user permissions in mind. So we don't have 20, 30 admin users anymore. Our website or our installation has multiple websites, so I think it's currently 5 websites in total in one installation. And we use the new site-sets feature that landed in version 13. So we don't have any single TypoScript record in the database anymore. Of course, we also had some casualties while doing this. Like I said, we dropped some old stuff. In total, we dropped 24 extensions, either by just dropping them because we don't need them anymore, or we moved or merged 2 or 3 extensions into one because they related that tightly together. And of the 24 extensions, we had 5 that were related to building layout stuff in the front end. I mean, why not 2 websites and 5 layout extensions? And of course, we removed all content elements that were tied to the removed extensions, including the HTML content element for obvious reasons like security, GDPR, or avoiding the risk of breaking the front-end rendering because somebody put some HTML in there and forgot the closing tag, for example. Yeah, and the numbers are combined for both projects, of course. Otherwise, it would be even worse. And in summer 2025, we nearly did it. The technical ground was laid for further work. And that's where you go.
Back to me. Yes, so the technical groundwork was basically done. That included the layout that I will get into now before we come to the content portion of the relaunch. So let's look at the front end of both websites before. On the left we have typo3.org, on the right we have typo3.com. We have separate designs for separate audiences, and you can't tell now, but when you scroll through the website when you visited like 4 months ago, there was a limited color scheme on both websites: orange, gray, black, blue. That's what we worked with. Now this is tiny for you, so I'll try to explain with words. I learned a lot about accessibility today, so let's give it a try. Let's look at the menu handling on typo3.com. You can tell from the start there are very different design approaches for both navigations. Here you see below the first level navigation, the second and the third navigation right away. It was different in typo3.org, where it opened to the right when clicking the second level navigation. And you can tell here in the TYPO3 CMS section, there is 2 TYPO3 CMS sections. We don't need that. So this is, one look ahead to what we had to cut and restructure in terms of content. And also you might notice the roadmap is in the project section here on typo3.org. Let's look at the universe bar. Have you actually ever used the universe bar as it was at the top of the page? Well, Frank, of course. Okay, a little bit. Nice, good, that's good. I never used it, so we have never looked at it. For the relaunch, we looked at it from a different angle, and we also questioned the name product for typo3.com. And I will show you now, you can tell, tiny little arrows that indicated where you were when clicking through the TYPO3 ecosystem. That led to some thoughts. So with Alex, like I said, fresh eyes came into the project, and he asked, why are there 2 separate designs? Can we question this? Because to the outside world, this whole separation of TYPO3 association, TYPO3 company, the who does what, nobody cares. When you come to the TYPO3 ecosystem, we should all look as one. So one visual language was our answer to this question. Also, we asked the question, what would new visitors expect to find where? Leading to a lot of movement of content where we think it belongs better. We wanted to actually make use of the universe bar for every visitor that comes to our websites. So a lot of renaming and restructuring, like I said. And it was a strategic decision to put way more focus on the top of the funnel, being typo3.com. So our existing ecosystem knows exactly where to go to find what they need. We are looking to attract new visitors, which happens through typo3.com usually. So this is what we came up with. This is our current homepage. 1 backend, 1 design basis, a very new universe bar. Like I said, we want to actually use it, so we move the website content to the left, and we keep the known and established links to the extension repository, the docs, mytypo3 on the right, where you would still find it. And also, there's a clear indication of where you are. And typo3 is no longer called product. It's called typo3 as it is, as in the CMS. And we have a separation, a strategic separation of community and project. So typo3.org was separated into 2. typo3.org and typo3.community. .community is supposed to invite to collaborate, find teams, join typo3, contribute, and the project is supposed to invite you to become a member, find out about general elections and all of these things that talk about the association and the governance side of the project. And we'll talk about the news more in depth later. They have been combined for the very first time. Making a big strategic decision in terms of news production and also the number of news that we're producing these days. So we'll look at the new menu. In the first level navigation, we have changes in the order, at least for typo3.com. Now here I speak more about typo3.com than the others because that was what I was responsible for. I said the case studies are among the highest click sites that we have, so it moved to the 2nd spot in our first level navigation. And our 2nd level navigation, we are now able to play with titles and subtitles as editors. We can manually highlight specific pages, topics. Right now, our latest release, 14.1, it will be replaced by 14.2 by the end of the month, and then for the LTS release, of course. And the biggest strategic change, the roadmap has moved over to our TYPO3 CMS section of the content. And we created individual CTAs on each domain. Here we have Get in Touch, Explore Services. On TYPO3.org, we have Become a Member. We have Join and Contribute for TYPO3.community. And for instance, subscribe to our newsletter and follow our social channels on the news website. So these were the major changes in the navigation that we made. Looking at the design, this could serve as best practices from an editorial standpoint, the templates that were created by Alex and Markus. So we have a kitchen sink page in the backend that can inspire any editor to find content elements and copy them in a creative way, find inspiration before creating them from scratch, which always makes sense. And we determined standard page templates for product detail pages, important landing pages, that we adapted throughout. And so this is the very first stages of templating that were mock-ups that were created by Markus. And if you go and visit typo3.com right now, this is exactly what you'll find, because it's very easy for us editors to duplicate these designs. Also, strategically, we decided to rely less on stock photography. It's really tough to maintain all of the licenses and rights anyway, but we also created reusable Canva templates where we work with icons, and also us editors are empowered to create beautiful landing pages by ourselves without having to rely on any extra work from a front-end developer. And also Alex offered us editor training, because in his concept he created a design that included a lot of containers and new background colors that we could use. So yeah, we could independently create these pages. Now this was my biggest part in the project, the content coordination. What you see here on the right is a mural board of our solutions navigation point. You can see a basic design for an article detail and the protocol of all of our weekly calls since January of 2025. So we have been busy, and I think we need to emphasize here for a minute that we did this on the side. Like we could not hire an outside agency to get this relaunch done. Like we were working on the relaunch while we were doing our jobs. So it was a big, big challenge. So we visualized the new navigation, finalized it, translated the vision board into a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet had URL mapping and redirect documentation, including UIDs. We had a status tracking of what content needed to be rewritten, trimmed down, or removed completely. There was a responsibility assignment for each line in the spreadsheet. And there we also coordinated the SEO title, meta description, the subtitles, like we said, that we now have, and the proofreading was also conducted there. So big tracking of the progress. Like I said, we had our weekly updates within the comms team and in the weekly calls with the team I presented before. The spreadsheet was really, really big. The sitemap has more than 4,000 items, so yeah, it was a big endeavor. We held regular sprints for the actual transfer. Here in this picture you can see in the back myself, my colleague Kendall. You also see Tom, Alex, and Jolene were working on the case studies here to create new landing pages and categorize them throughout. This was during the developer days. There was a marketing sprint being held for the full translation of typo3.com into German, where also new content pages for use cases were created. And in September and November, we had dedicated working hours just to get the manual portion of the content transfer done. This involved in numbers 6 full-time employees on the company side, and I'm saying 1.5 on the association side, because it was mostly Matthias Baud-Lesniak, and sometimes I would chip in Spoonie or Tom Warwick from our side, where we could help with the new association content. And before I pass on for the news hub over to Andy From a strategic standpoint, news.typo3.com, like I said, big change. All news published in one central hub, which is a big decision on Matthias's side because the domain sovereignty was moved over for every single piece, article piece over to typo3.com. So that is a quite important decision. And since the relaunch, we have created more than 100 new articles there. So we are putting a big emphasis on the News Hub. Like I said, massive undertaking. That'll be Andy's part, just in terms of redirecting what we did here, the old slug from .org and .com, all resulting into news.typo3.com/article/slug. And there are more improvements in progress. We will create for each category 7 in total, a new landing page. The author profiles will be connected to the MyTypo3 user profiles as it was before on typo3.org, so that's still coming. And also event cards will be implemented for the events that are already displayed on the news section. And this is what it looks like.
So, the News Hub was kind of a special migration-wise because we, like we said, we had to migrate 2 systems with existing data. We needed to get things done. Typo3.org uses news records. We use blog posts. And we don't have enough time to migrate all along into one specific system. So what did we do? We had a consolidated output channel, basically a front-end page that gets the data from the blog posts and from the news, merges them together somehow, sorts them by date, and gives you the sliced part of the data you've requested. When you're on page 1, you get the first 30 entries and so on. And because we have more flexibility when we are migrating to the blog extension, we decided we'll do that somewhere later, anytime, when we have time for that. And we have a special case here which kind of also blocks the blog migration right now. We have security bulletins. These are still based on news records, and that's an issue because since last year, TYPO3 is in CNA, means we can assign numbers for CVEs. And one requirement is that URLs to such pages must not change at all. That's a pretty tough thing, and we don't know how to tackle that yet. But we're working on it, promised. While migrating this stuff, we of course had some obstacles because stuff is never easy. Since, like I said, we had news and blog posts, means we don't have a normalized data storage below because we wanted to migrate from news to blog anyway. So we didn't see the benefit of doing that. Also, that would have brought other issues we would have to tackle. This also brings, of course, performance penalties, which means we, in a way that we have to fetch data in a greedy way when we are talking about pagination. When we are on the first page, everything is fine because we know we need 30 records. We just get the first 30 blog posts, the first 30 news records, merge them, sort them, and then get the final 30 topmost records. When you're on page 10, do the math, and it stacks up. Another important topic is caching. Raise your hands, who ever had any caching issues on their website? Who is not raising their hand is lying. No, we had the funny issue that loading the pages was super fast on a local machine, but on the server it was pretty slow because 2 cache tags were missing, and then the whole system got bonkers and said, I'm not cached at all, I'm getting everything from the database again. So it was the tags pages and TX domain news model. So the most generic ones you can ever have. We also had the issue that for some weird reasons, I don't know how, some blog posts were missing in the export, and this was noticed after we imported and modified the old blog posts. So simply dropping and re-importing them was a no-go, so we had a little extra fun here. And my special one is the RSS feed, because at the beginning it was fast enough, But after time after time, it went slower with a server load of 12, which with 4 cores, which means the server's on a heavy load and is struggling at all. RAM at its max, because since we're using blog posts now, you have, of course, more blog-related entries in the RSS feed, and when it was decided to render the contents of the blog posts in the RSS feed. And blog posts are full pages, so which means in the worst scenario, we have 60 fully rendered pages in an RSS feed, uncached. Yeah. And of course, this issue was noticed when we had to do an important security release on that day, because nothing was available anymore. Cool.
We promised reality
Yeah.
in this talk.
Yeah, that's reality when it's hitting hard in your face with a chair. So anyway, somewhere we had to go live. So what did we do the day we went live? Final content checks of the most important pages, and if there was something we had to adjust, we just did that. We did final stress tests if something breaks in terms of hard exceptions, not about caching, obviously. We had to put a content warning on typo3.org in some places because of the sheer amount of data and the time that wasn't that much available. Parts were missing or were incomplete, and we had to inform the visitor that stuff will come later. And I think we don't have any content warning left. Yay. Yeah, that's going live. And since everybody has a strong meaning about system administrators, either you're complaining because something's broken and why do we have system administrators and nothing works, or it's the other way around, why do we have system administrators and because, or even if anything works, why do you need them then? I want to say a thank you to our server team, who was available mostly of all the time when they didn't have to do their own daily work. They were really fast and helpful, and when it comes to debugging or checking something on the server or configuring something for us, because we don't have the permissions on the server to do it ourselves. Talking about reusing infrastructure. And because one relaunch isn't enough, we had to do another launch, and the next day, the T3Con 25, we launched TYPO3 version 14.0. And after the launch, for the launch, we had, of course, some issues that were unnoticed before going live because we had some weird infrastructure issues with our Solar server that decided to remove all cores when Solar got restarted because there was an undocumented change in the infrastructure. So that was changed and fixed, and finally we don't lose our cores anymore. Yay. And we promised we configure backend user groups, and we did that. And we switched our modus operandi from having a relaunch project to having a maintenance project now. And we switched from having weekly calls to bi-weekly calls. And we are still thankful for Thomas Löffler because he decided he will continue working on the project with us even when the relaunch was done. SEO is your thing.
That's my part. I promised numbers and improvements in some parts. Going to typo3.com first. So what has changed? Here again, I want you to be mindful with the numbers. We launched on the 25th of November in 2025. We're at March 13th, so 3.5 months of data. And in between that, there's a big dip for Christmas time. So I think that by summer, these numbers will improve even further. But yes, let's look at the website visits. We have 77,000 on average per month, which is a plus of 37,000, moving over to typo3.com. Our visibility has grown the page impressions by 96,000, so that's roughly 41% more page impressions. We now have 37 editors in total. Remember, 29 for .com, 34 for .org. So we also trimmed down there to people that actually use it and work in the back end, proper user groups. And now we are talking about 203 content pages, which is a plus of 58. So this is the content that has moved over from typo3.org. This is new case studies being published on typo3.com. And also the new landing pages that I was talking about for solutions and use cases that didn't exist before. So that's roughly 58 more content pages. Now for typo3.org, we also have to keep in mind typo3.community that didn't exist before. Here we have 68,000 website visits, which is 38,000 less. You can imagine where they went, over to typo3.com. But the page impressions have grown. So we did something right in the restructuring of the content there. The same 37 editors, just here as a repetition. And now we talk about 135 content pages, which is more than 200 less, because we had a lot of duplicate content, a lot of the marketing content of what is Typo3, talking to marketers, etc., was still existing on typo3.org with no purpose. So that was all significantly cut down. Also the governance, I didn't even mention, when I was rehearsing this, I didn't even think of that. The governance has moved over to the Typo3 policy section, so also there a lot of content pages went out the door on that side. When we look at the search queries that we had before and after the relaunch, according to the Search Console, when we look at the top 10, I didn't bring all of the keywords, and Typo3 in itself is in every domain that we offer, so I left that out immediately. So before the relaunch, we have, you can tell on the .com side with ELTS certification and the events, so products and events, that was what typo3.com stood for. And for .org, the roadmap, the extensions, the CMS itself, and how to download it. Again, just an excerpt of the top 10. After the relaunch, you can tell that the roadmap has, it is the top searched, even before Typo3, top searched according to the Google Search Console for typo3.com, in whatever order. Typo3 roadmap, roadmap Typo3. v14, of course, because not only the roadmap has moved over to .com, but also the release materials. So, of course, we would rank for that. And yes, the CMS keyword also moved over to us. And relatively stable on the .org side when it comes to the keywords. So we can make some deductions from that. There's a clearer separation of responsibilities between the two domains now. The product topics remain strong and rank on typo3.com. The developer infrastructure remains stable on typo3.org. The roadmap has successfully migrated, as the numbers have shown, and I think will continue to show throughout the year, without losing any search demand, and proper redirecting, of course. And the commercial service pages remain strong entry points. I can confirm that looking at the path analysis in GA4. So if you come from the roadmap, you might stick with the product section, and when you come into the product section, you will look for the roadmap. So we have a quite clear path, a click path from our visitors. And as we wanted, the typo3.org and community traffic now reflect the separation that I was talking about before. And going into our last slide for today. Like I said, the news hub will be revamped significantly, because with all of the new news coming in every month, we want to treat it as such, and it is a big driver of visits. A partner search will be implemented on typo3.com. We are working on a feature called, as we call it internally, pages as ads, which means that we are working on plugins that will interconnect, significant team pages with their reports or meaningful landing pages that belong to the respective teams, blog posts that will show meaningful landing pages, and vice versa. So we want to do that in a smart way, so it rotates throughout your visit and it doesn't become repetitive or has to be added manually. And we will continue the translation of the content into Dutch and French. So, Ronnie, looking at you. We have been collaborating very well here, also with the French community. So, look forward to that. And that is it from us. Thank you. questions. We're here anyway, so we're not going anywhere. So
Except Daniel, he's not allowed to ask.
no, don't ask Daniel. He was not involved in this project.
No, wait. You're still muted here.
Okay. Test. Perfect. Okay, microphone works, we can start. So, thank you for being here. I'm going to talk about a little bit of a front-end topic, but also about a bigger picture behind it, you will see in the talk. I named the talk, What SPAs Got Right, Lessons for Boring Web Development. I would myself classify as a more boring web developer. I don't use that many fancy technologies. So boring isn't meant as an insult, it's more meant as a, For me personally, it would be some sense of quality and some sense of stability. But boring sounded funnier, I guess. So first, a few words about me. My name is Praetorius. And I have a clicker, which I now use. I've been working for 13 years in TYPO3 agencies before I went independent in 2023. I always saw myself on the intersection between the backend and the front end, so I do both. I originally did more PHP development, but I also always enjoyed a lot of HTML and CSS and also a bit of JavaScript. So that's where I've been working a lot in the recent years in this area. And I'm also a member of the maintenance team of Fluid, which you might know as the templating language that TYPO3 uses. And I'm also the developer of one or maybe the most popular extension that TYPO3 extension that integrates Vite, which is a front-end bundler with TYPO3. So you can already see that this is what I do. I do a templating language which has something to do with front-end but also with back-end, and also I try to integrate front-end heavy tools with back-end systems or more back-end driven systems like TYPO3. So, before we dive into the whole topic, what even is an SPA? So, SPA stands for Single Page Application. I have to check, okay, I see the same thing. Stands for Single Page Application, and what I mean by that is the usage of all those frameworks that we heard about over the last maybe 10 years, I think, something like React, Vue, or Svelte, and also the frameworks that are behind that or around it, however you might want to see it, something like Next.js or Nuxt.js or headless CMS in general, which provides content in a more structured way, maybe as JSON, to those single page applications. So this is what I would classify as the SPA stack in the context of this talk. In contrast to that, there's a new term which is called a multi-page application, which I would classify as HTML pages with links and forms. So the things we did all along before the whole single page application thing happened. And this is what, I don't know about you, but I see a lot of TYPO3 guys in the audience. We use day to day, we use something like WordPress, Drupal, TYPO3, Symfony, the systems like this, which are generally built around rendering HTML in the backend and serving the ready-made HTML to the front end, to the browser, to the user, and maybe sprinkle some JavaScript on it to make it fancier in some areas where it's necessary. So you could also call the SPA stack the more cool, the fancy stack, and you could also call the MPA stack the boring stuff, which we do all day to day. So is everything an app then? I don't think so. Everyone called everything an app suddenly, but I don't really think so. I think the majority of things on the internet are still web pages, and it's all right because it's just content. There doesn't need to be an interaction in every place. So I wouldn't call it an application, but sure, we stay with MPA, I guess. So when would you want to use a single page application? In my opinion, you would use it when you have a lot of data, when the whole thing is data-driven, when there's a lot of complexity on the client, so you have a lot of fast interaction in the browser, you move things around, you edit things, save them, and it needs to update in every place. And usually that interaction happens across the whole project and not only on a small part of the project. In contrast to that, I would classify MPAs as more content-driven, something like a content management system that renders HTML to the browser. It has more server-side complexity related to that HTML rendering and so on, and also the data manipulation you need on the back-end side. And if you have any interactivity, it's usually around some isolated places, but not across the whole system like you would have in a real application. So usually this is what happens, and what I also described in these few first moments of this talk. There's some kind of a battle between those two things, but I don't think it needs to be that way, at least not always, and not across the whole topic. I think we as boring developers, or at least I as a boring developer, can learn something from the SPA hype that happened over the last few years and that now ebbed a bit down and became a bit more mainstream, normal from my point of view. So this is what I want to show you. I want to show you 3 areas in this talk where I think something really good happened on the SPA side that we can adopt into our daily work as developers in TYPO3 or similar systems. And I want to talk about, of course, at first, Mr. Components. I want to talk about components and not about the technical point of view around components, but more about the construct, the the concept behind it, which is very useful in my experience to structure projects, no matter if they are an app or a website. So what are components? What do I mean by components? Components are just code snippets, but they have a strict API, which is very important, as you can see soon. They should have minimal side effects, so they should be isolated. And they should be mostly dumb. They shouldn't do major things within them, but should stand for themselves and not have that much internal logic. So the first 2 points, code snippet and strict API, that in combination means that these things are really reusable. So if you just have code snippets, they aren't really reusable because you don't know how and when you can use them, but once you have an API, you know what the code snippet can do and can't do, and then you can really use it across a whole project, especially if the API is done well. The second, the other two, so the strict API and the minimal side effects, mean that the components are encapsulated, so you don't have any side effects outside if you use a component, which also makes it more reusable because it's easier to use them. You don't have to think about things around it. You just have to think about the component and does it fit in that location where you want to use it or not. And the last thing, it's simple. Because the components are mostly dumb, they shouldn't do much themselves. They, as long you could compare it to programming, when the function becomes too big and too complicated, you usually would split it into 2 or more functions, and the same thing is true for components. So you tend to have smaller components, which makes them more simple, more easier to understand, and easier to reuse across the project. So how does a component would look like conceptually? So something like a teaser card, that's the reusable part of a project, which you can use in multiple parts across the project, and the teaser card becomes only becomes reusable because of its API. So in this case, it has a title, it has an icon, which may be optional, it has a link associated with it, and it has content associated with it. And if you don't provide this information, then the teaser card shouldn't work. So it's not like, if you are in the TYPO3 world, you have a partial and you don't really know what the partial can do and can't do, and you don't know which data you need to provide for the partial to work. In this case, you exactly know what you can do with the teaser card and what you can't do, and which data needs to be provided. So this means in your project that you invent your own HTML elements, so you abstract away from the usual HTML elements, the built-in HTML elements, and you build your own HTML elements like a header or something like a teaser card or news post, something like this, which can then be used to be nested into each other and build the whole website. So the benefits of this are, of course, you get visual consistency. So you define how a button would look like only in one place, and then if you change it there, the whole project changes around it. This is very powerful and allows more refactoring and doesn't lead to a project where you suddenly have 10 similar colors but are not the same, because it's defined in one place and one place only. And the structure of components allows you to achieve that. You can also enforce other guidelines, something like accessibility. So you can define how a component should be accessible, how it should behave in a screen reader, for example, in one place. And when others use this component, they get the accessibility automatically and don't have to really care about this part, at least for that small component. It also allows refactoring, which isn't really possible in a lot of projects where you have ever-growing CSS and you have fear about throwing anything out because you don't really know if it's really used anymore. If you check your whole project for that component and the component isn't used anymore, then you can throw it away, including the CSS and the JS that is related to that component. So it's really powerful. And you can use something like a living style guide, which can help you visualize everything that's already there so you don't build duplicate things, and it also helps you build the components and test the components independently of the whole thing around it, which also helps with reusability. So how do you get started with this in a context where there's no single page application? Fortunately, a lot of things that we use day to day already support this. I myself implemented this for Fluid and for TYPO3, but you can also use this in Symfony, in Laravel. You can always use native web components which are on the client side, not on the server side, but which don't require any library and which can be helpful in some circumstances. There you can also define your own HTML elements. And of course, if it makes sense in that context, you can also use frameworks like Lit or Vue or Svelte or even React if you really want to use this concept. But as I said, it only makes sense if the project is more data-driven than content-driven. So the second point I wanted to talk about in the context of single-page applications and what they did well, you could argue, is tooling. So if we think about the ecosystem of single-page applications, we first think about something like this, the frameworks which everyone knows or has heard about, something like React, Svelte, Vue, Lit, Next.js, and so on. But there's a lot more that developed around these frameworks and which makes a lot more things possible and is very interesting to look into to a certain part. So this starts with bundlers, very different and even more advanced ways to bundle your CSS, your JavaScript into smaller chunks, to optimize them, to collect things from different places from your project and bundle it into one thing, something like this. Also a lot of tooling around code quality. There's also the whole style guide part of this ecosystem. There are some other tools, something like package managers, which all developed around this hype for single-page applications, because everyone wanted to use single-page applications for their projects, and a lot of junior developers went through coding schools which only learned React, and they needed the tools to be faster, better, something like this. And yeah, it looks a lot. I forgot some even more, and of course they can't all fit on one slide. It would be a huge slide. But what they did right, in my opinion, was to treat the tooling as part of the product and not something as or something that is not that important. It is important to a certain degree to have the right tools to be more powerful at what you want to achieve. And they did a lot of progress over the years, and the tools became better and better and faster, which is also helpful for us as developers who don't usually use single-page applications. Yeah, as I said, is it too much tooling? It probably is, but interestingly, it led to the emerging of some standards, both literal standards like ECMAScript and CSS improvements, which didn't really happen before that type. So a lot of the changes or the things that they needed and that they built with tooling themselves went into actual standards which we can now use in the browser. Also, the whole native web component thing happened because of single-page applications. Also, even HTML was extended for something like the dialog element, so we don't really need to build any custom components anymore because the browser already includes some of this stuff, and you don't really need JavaScript for it anymore. And I think there's also some signs that there might be consolidation concerning the bundler thing. There were a lot of bundlers around, but it more and more converges towards Vite, in my opinion, at least in the last 2 years, I think. Also, backend frameworks like Laravel use Vite now, which is, I think, a sign that you can bet on this horse in this case, because it gets more and more adoption and the other bundlers aren't that popular anymore. And this is also maybe a topic that could become a standard. I'm reluctant about it, but utility-first CSS, something like Tailwind, seems to be on the rise, especially with AI, which apparently loves to generate HTML that uses Tailwind. So maybe this is also something that could be worth looking into if you don't use it yet. I myself don't use it, honestly, because I don't like it, but I think it's more personal taste for me. So how do you get started with this? And I would start with a step before that. My goal, or the goal for our project, should be to modernize and simplify our front-end setup. What I mean by that is throw out your huge webpack config file and replace it with something very shorter and simpler and more powerful. A lot more stuff is now included in those tools and is the default. You don't need any configuration for it, so this makes it a lot easier to maintain your setup around your front-end stuff. You should, to make this possible, you should and must drop the really old browsers, but that's okay because nobody uses Internet Explorer anymore, really. And if they do, sorry about that. You can also start replacing a lot of the libraries you use today with just browser features, either CSS or just HTML, as I've shown you with the dialog element. There isn't that much code required anymore to show some light box or something like that. So this might be feasible to just drop the library or replace it with a much smaller, much more modern library. You can switch to more modern bundlers, something like Vite, which for TYPO3 is now, thanks to the integration, I think 4 lines of configuration. So this is really a big contrast to your 100, 150 line of Webpack configuration, which somebody wrote who isn't there anymore. So this could be much simpler to just switch to the modern stuff than to try to understand what you already have. And you can make use of the linting tools which are available to just improve your code quality in the front-end part of your application. Or website, not application. And the third thing I want to mention is the whole thing, how this whole thing started. The single-page application stack was this concept of reactivity and reactive state. And this is something that is very helpful in cases where you have to deal with data and you can't really keep everything in sync in your application if you don't use some kind of reactivity. So the concept is that of course the data is separated from the presentation. and the presentation more or less takes care or keeps track where the data comes from and listens to changes from that data and automatically updates itself, but only the relevant parts. So not the whole page updates when one data thing changes, but only the relevant part, and this happens mostly automatically in these modern frameworks. And of course there are a lot of small optimizations and tools around that reactivity stuff depending on the framework you're using. So it's a really powerful concept, and it makes things a lot easier if you deal with a lot of data instead of more unstructured content, I would say, as you do in content management systems. So it makes sense to keep that in mind, that this is a helpful tool which you can use. So, but we have a multi-page application, but reactive. How does this work together? And there's a concept of interactive islands. I like the naming, and that's why I use it, because it makes things, I think, more understandable. The idea is that you have mostly server-rendered HTML, as we do, for example, with TYPO3. And then there are some areas within that page which are more dynamic and which can't be really rendered server-side or can't be handled fully server-side because there's more interaction needed on the client side. So they are marked somehow, and this is, I would say, analog or related to progressive enhancement, because you get a lot of the page without any JavaScript involved, and only the parts which really require JavaScript, there it's applied, for example, with one of those reactive frameworks. So if we go back to that slide from before, if you have interactive islands instead of single-page application or multi-page application, it's still data-driven, and it's still relevant if there's client-side complexity, but it doesn't need to be the whole page. It can only be a part of a page where this framework takes over from the statically rendered HTML the server produced. So to get started, first of all, you need to decide which framework you need to use, and if you really need something like this, so the first decision should be, is it complex enough to use something like this, because it produces some kind of overhead, and you need someone, at least not one person, but more than one person who knows something about the framework. So yeah, you need some onboarding and you need some knowledge about it. But if you decide that it's complex enough to invest in this, you should also consider the project and how it's going, what is planned in the future, and also the team. I already mentioned this. It shouldn't be only the React guy on the team which handles every React thing, but there should be at least two people in the team which are interested in that topic and can work on the code. And I would also say in this part, prefer the more future-proof approach and more boring technology, which hasn't been released only yesterday, but one of the established frameworks makes a lot of sense. Also considering hiring of other people who can work with that. So to sum up the whole thinking behind this topic, I would say unfollow the hype. You need to be careful when there's a hype happening to keep the right balance between following what's happening there and not get lost into every new idea that's out there, because sometimes it just doesn't lead to anything. It can be sometimes funny or interesting to look into one of those paths, but it's important to refocus on what's actually important for your projects, for your clients, what helps you actually in your day-to-day business. So I would instead suggest to learn the fundamentals behind it. It makes a lot of sense to follow what's happening in the browsers, in the web platform, to follow what also happens in the standards behind it, even if the standards are years out before they land in browsers. It makes a lot of sense to look at those and to also judge libraries based on if they are founded on standards or if they just invented their own thing and you don't know where it leads in the future. I also find it quite helpful to have resources at hand that curate what happens within a hype, so it doesn't make sense, considering the current hype of AI, to follow every small thing that's happening there, but to follow people who follow some of the things and then let you know if something important is really happening, to not get lost in the whole hype cycle and not get your daily business going. You also should invest time or should train your bullshit detector to know what's right and what's just wrong, what doesn't lead anywhere. That always makes a lot of sense, and it's a good investment, I think, in the professional future of everyone in IT. You should always evaluate consequences. If you decide for one framework, what could it lead to, what could be the problems in the future, and only then take an informed decision based on that. And I personally try to pick technologies, something like Vite, that already has proved itself in the market and isn't the new shiny thing that everyone likes today and maybe doesn't like tomorrow anymore. So, if you want to learn more, want me to talk more about things that may be interested for the team you have in your company, you could hire me. I do individual workshops for teams. I could help you in introducing something like the component thing I talked about to your team. I could help you modernize the front-end toolchain. But enough about me. Do you have any questions? I don't see any, so thank you very much for listening to me. And okay, there's a question.
May I make a little addition? I think if you're choosing a framework, a very good idea is if it's respecting the concept of separation of concerns. So structure, design, and functionality are not mixed up, like HTML code and database or something like this.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good addition. So, any further questions or remarks? Okay, then thank you for your attention. I will be here also tomorrow, so yeah, if you want to talk to me, just let me know. Thanks.
afternoon, everybody. I hope you enjoyed all the sessions today. Got some new, fresh ideas, or some new friends, or other things what you did today. So we will have 5 minutes for closing of today. Some people were going home today, but yeah, when I see all the tickets, we have quite a lot of people coming in back tomorrow, so we're really happy for that. But for that, what we're going to do is a few things. And first of all, Jens wants to tell a little bit about things coming up.
And just a short advertisement. Sorry to steal some of your minutes. Who is not doing anything with TYPO3? Then you're allowed to sleep now. It's just a simple thing. As you should know, TYPO3 is run or is owned by the TYPO3 Association. The association is represented by a board. We have some board members here, so you can talk with the responsible people who try to take care for our common system we use together and live from it and earn money with that. There's once a year a general assembly, and once a year there is some of the positions in the board and in the business control committee for election. So we have election every year for some positions. And that's the important thing I just wanted to tell, because we know that from the past years, like in the politics, if you are a member of the TYPO3 Association, you are allowed to vote once a year, and the voting period starts today. So we have the next 2 weeks the possibility to vote for the new board members. Please take a look. There are some out there who want to have that position. Please take part. Use your right to vote. Bring yourself in, because that's helping for us. And if you say, oh damn, I'm not a member, it's too late for this year. But it's not only companies who can become a member of the TYPO3 Association. You can become a member as a private person too, for a fantastic 10 euros a year, plus 10 euros sign-up fee. So for the first year it's 20 euros. It's not that much money. You become a member, and you own kind of a part of TYPO3, roughly per mil. And then you can take part and help to decide in which way we continue and which people should represent and organize the things to the outside. And that's important. That was the thing I just wanted to say. It's not about me and it's not about Joe who are candidating. There are others who are candidating. Please just bring yourself in and take the part. That's the important thing.
I want just to add something.
There's another thing that you should know. There's talk.typo3.org. Who doesn't know what that is? Okay? Because talk.typo3.org is the way that you can actually ask questions to all the candidates who are running for the election. And there already are some questions. Sometimes it's not that crowded over there, but you can ask questions. You can see what answers the candidates gave. So I just recommend to go there. Or if you have direct questions to answer me, because we're already here, you can ask us this evening. So it would be nice to talk about things that are bothering you. And that was what I wanted to add to the available addresses where you can get information.
Maybe the candidates can go more tomorrow and have a little session so they can answer all the questions.
If we don't steal a slot from other important topics tomorrow, we could do that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
We will see that tomorrow.
Yeah. Let's see tomorrow if there are enough slots available, then we could do that, because otherwise it might make more sense when we just talk to each other in between or between the sessions. Okay?
But the other ones are important too, are not here yet, or not here this time. And there are existing board members here, like Martin or Tom, somewhere there too.
Olivier.
Boris is coming to tomorrow, President.
Boris is coming tomorrow as well.
Use that, because these are the people who have to keep contact to how it will work with their responsibility.
I think it would be very interesting to
And then all persons who will be elected have the possibility to answer, and you can see the personal reaction from everyone, not when you stand outside and speak to one and then half an hour later to another person. So you have in a bundle. So, and now we have here the possibility to talk to everyone in a bundle, and I think it could be a good idea, but it's not necessary at all.
We will offer it if people say yes, it's fine, it's not okay.
It's up to the people who are here tomorrow. So, so we have a first session suggested already. I wouldn't expect something else. Okay, that's some publicity over there. And we have another one. Olivier already mentioned it in his session over there. And I think you would like to add to your great, the supporting act, and also to your order personality.
Yeah. Thanks, Eddie, for the opportunity. How do I start? As you don't vote for this guy, I don't want to work with him. Sorry. You know, there's only one president wearing a red hat, not me. But you can Google for Reverend Never End, and I'm internet famous now. So, okay, 2019, TYPO3 went to Cape Town, South Africa, and as the CMS Africa Summit at that time. And we had a small booth. We had all the good swag that we could bring to South Africa. And 3 girls came up to the desk and say, "What is TYPO3?" It was a WordPress conference, Joomla was there, and we said, "Oh, we're a content management system, open source." And they said, "Oh, we don't know, what is that?" And then I asked them, "Who are you?" And they say, "Oh, well, basically we're 3 girls from a township in nearby Cape Town. There's a big township, Ululeto it's called, and it's the Western Cape, on the Western Cape." And they said, "All right, we're actually 3 girls that have studied computer sciences, and we want to give back something to our community where we come from. And we want to teach people in our community," and at that time they had like a kind of small container on a school, and they had no computers, they had no tables, they just had electricity, but they had a room where they could meet with kids and with young adults to learn things, computers. And I was impressed, and I said, "Okay, here's my business card, and just contact me." And they contacted me later on, and I offered them just to mentor them throughout the time. And you know, as a Westerner, you have a lot of prejudice, and we are all very gifted to live our life and not being aware of other people's lives, especially people that might be 11 hours away from here with the airplane. And through the time, then came COVID. All the plans that they made did not work. Nobody could meet, and so on and so forth. To cut the story short, in the time that I've met them and I've mentored them, they were like pivoting all the plans that they had, but they are doing great stuff. They're meeting with people, and they're doing hackathons, and they're learning TYPO3, and yeah, so what I did, challenge that I have for you, and I tell you, there's a high bar that people have set, and Jens, you've been there, I guess, when we met in Düsseldorf last year, and I said for everyone who donates 100 euros, and people donate way more than that, I give them like a special gift. And so this is the challenge for the camps here. Donate to Babescat Bytes. I will get the list of the donators. And everyone, so you have to surpass, your donations, you can surpass the other camps. I was, at every camp that I am, I will challenge you to donate to them. You can
almost 5 packs of cigarettes, 3 Aperol Spritz. So just think of that. So, but there will be a thing that I will give to you in response. And now come back the early days of the crazy guy called the Reverend Neverend. He got forgotten because 10 years ago, somewhere, and we're here in a sacral setting, right? So basically, he's the guy from the, I don't know, if is this a Catholic church or an Evangelist church? I don't know. Never mind. I will perform as the Reverend at your next bar camp, if you're donating to that. I will perform my special dance, the Reverend's dance, and I will wear my wardrobe, and I will give you then also, maybe think of a special gift like a pin or like a badge that I will give you. So please donate to them, they're worth it. They're really, really the nicest and loveliest people I've ever known in my life, except of you. So thanks again. Thanks, Eddie. Please donate €5 and so on. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you all heard this challenge. So next year we want to see him back live on stage in that special suit and dancing all around here together with us. And you're already clapping. Yeah, it's for today what I said, what I said already before. I would like to thank everybody. I would like to thank the speakers with all their inspirational talks, the sponsors who made this event possible, the supporters, the helping hands, the organization team, the video team, the location team over here, and special also all you being here around for today and for tonight and tomorrow. Thank you very much for being here. And I hope that you liked it so far, that you will like it tomorrow. And the most of you know that there is a Best Camp Award voting as well within the TYPO3 community. And I would like to invite you all also to scan this code, of course, if you're happy for today, to make some nice vote for this camp. So, yeah, people win that prize. Please be challenged.
26, huh?
That's okay.
We will bring both of you.
No, it's probably because this is the next slide. We really would like already to announce the camp for next year. And we know it's the best camp ever. So please be here next year again. Put the date already in your agenda, and we'll see you around next year. Yeah, that was it for me so far. I would like to invite you, everybody, again over here on this stage to make a new version of this picture. So thank you very much. Have a safe trip home, and please come over here, and then Jonathan will take a great picture of ourselves and have a nice party tonight. Count down. Yeah. En français?
Now count in French.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, yes!
Hey!
And with
another one. 3, 2, 1, yeah! Okay, thank you very much. Have a good one tonight. See you tomorrow.